Hey folks, you're watching NFL Daily presented by Man Crates. Cam Rogers with you alongside Tom Downey here to break down all the latest NFL news and rumors. And we are examining some trade targets, if you will, and free agents out there and their potential destinations.
We're gonna get to it, Seahawks fans. You're not gonna have any kind thoughts. I mean, but that's okay.
That's typical Seahawks, though. You know, that's just the way it goes.
Hate on Cam for that one, not me.
Come at me, don't at me. All right, so let's start things off with Bashaud Breeland, who is a really interesting story here. He originally signed with the Carolina Panthers and then failed a physical, so he's still a free agent, and now we're still wondering.
Really crappy offseason for Breeland because he had a nice 3-year, $24 million deal, got it locked in, can go be a free agent after that deal is done. He'll still be young enough, and then hasn't done a whole lot since then. The market around Breeland has been very quiet thus far, has not been a lot of interest around Breeland so far. A very, very quiet look as to what we have for Breeland, and it really sucks from that he had that foot infection overall, Cam.
Yeah, the Washington Redskins traded away Kendall Fuller, and Bashaud Breeland, of course, is no longer a member of Washington either, so some turnover in the secondary for the Redskins. Meanwhile, you look at the cornerback market, and Bashaud Breeland, look, he's not a top-line cornerback in the National Football League, but he's a guy who can actually help. He can contribute. And when we go through this list here, Tom, of our top 5 teams for Breeland, all of which could use some secondary help, even the teams that just missed our list also could make some sense.
Yeah, I think there are quite a few that are strong options for Breeland, and it's unfortunate that he had the foot infection. He should have already been signed. I think once he gets cleared to play fully, he'll find a team very quickly. There might be one team in particular that might already have a little bit of a mini deal kind of worked out, like, hey, once you pass your physical, come in and we'll talk.
All right, so with that, let's take a look at the teams that just missed the list here for Bashaud Breeland, and we will take a look at the Washington Redskins, Carolina Panthers, San Francisco 49ers, Chicago Bears, and Cleveland Browns here. 49ers addressed the secondary this offseason. They brought in Richard Sherman, also via the draft, DJ Reed, for example. Who sticks out here?
You know, for me, it's the Panthers, because, of course, they had the deal locked in, but it kind of seems like they're not going to bring him back after what happened. They're not going to have any interest there. The Redskins, they've shown no interest in bringing back Breeland, which I thought was a little bit surprising. The Bears, I think they're fine overall, but if someone gets hurt, they could make a lot more sense as an option. The Browns would have made sense before the draft. Then they signed, or drafted, I should say, Denzel Ward. They don't really have any for quarterback anymore. They did have interest at the beginning of free agency. Not so much now in terms of a need.
All right, you see in the bottom right of your screen, folks, we are indeed presented by Man Crates here on NFL Daily, so they're coming along for the ride as we got you covered for the next hour. All right, so those are some teams that just missed the list here for Bashaud Breeland. Let's take a look at team number 5, and we've got the Seattle Seahawks, thanks to mancrates.com here. And for Seattle, well, they're going through their fair share of turnover in the secondary with the uncertainty around Cam Chancellor. Maybe Earl Thomas could be dealt. Of course, Richard Sherman is no longer there. Their top cornerbacks, they got Griffin, they've got Byron Maxwell. Bashaud Breeland would be a nice option for a Seattle secondary that's going through some transitions here.
I think it's a pretty bad group of cornerbacks for Seattle outside of Shaquille Griffin. He is a really, really good player, but the rest of the Seahawks cornerbacks, they're just in bad shape overall. Byron Maxwell is not an ideal guy that you want playing big snaps at this point in his NFL career. Justin Coleman is a fine nickel corner. He's a quality one at that end. But Trey Flowers might play a big role for Seattle. Dante Johnson,
not good, Tom.
You know from the Niners, is not a reliable player at all. That's a big area of concern for Seattle. The guys behind those initial 5 are really not anything to write home about either. It's a pretty iffy crew at best at corner for Seattle. I was surprised they didn't address it as much as they did in free agency. And maybe Breeland doesn't fit the ideal mold of a Seahawks corner, but they need more bodies there. I think he'd be a good fit.
I kind of like Justin Coleman because I like his size in general.
But I think he's a number 3, not a number 1 guy. Or even a number 2 to pair with the other Shaq Griffin.
All right, so Bashaud Breeland perhaps going to the Seattle Seahawks. They're at number 5 here on our list. Let's take a look at number 4. We'll stay in the NFC and zone in on the New York Giants. So don't rule out a DRC return. That was the latest report out of Big Blue that maybe Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie could be back with the Giants. But as we stand, they have Janoris Jenkins, they have Eli Apple. But after that, you want to talk about pedigree? Not much for the New York Giants corners.
DRC was a big reason why that cornerback group was so good, at least early on, because you had DRC, you had an appropriate Eli Apple and a focused Eli Apple, and of course Janoris Jenkins is great. But the rest of that crew beyond the top two guys right now, it's actually in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, it ain't good.
It's not good. You brought in William Gay, who at this point, Cam, I just don't think he has a lot left in the tank. I don't think there's a whole lot for Gay to offer. B.W. Webb, Teddy Williams, it's just not a great group of players, and that's a big concern for me for the Giants, who you could use one more corner. Maybe the concern, maybe why it's not an ideal fit overall, Cam. Do you want to put Apple in the slot? Because I don't think Breeland should play in the slot, so you don't really have an ideal
nickel corner.
Well, you'll hear from
him if he doesn't like it. That's
exactly.
For sure,
You will hear from it. So I just don't know if you have an ideal number 3 option to play that slot role right now. That's why the Giants aren't higher on this list.
The Giants do have a hefty amount of salary cap space, so they can spend if they want to. So we've got the Giants there at number 4. A talented defense. Just a couple of years ago, they were really solid in terms of getting after the passer and essentially playing lockdown secondary type of defense. Now, they took a drop-off campaign back in 2017, but with the Giants there at number 4, just a team to keep in mind, folks, as Bashaud Breeland goes throughout this free agency campaign. All right, let's go to number 3. We've got the Arizona Cardinals. So some connections here, Tom. Breeland did meet with Arizona.
This, I thought, made a lot more sense until Arizona traded for Jamar Taylor. Once they brought in Taylor, it kind of seemed like Arizona was like, oh, we're fine, we don't need any more help, which I don't really agree with. I was kind of surprised they signed and then cut Marcus Williams in like a month's time frame because we'll get to their depth chart here. It's really not in great shape overall. It's a pretty bad cornerback group when you go through it. Obviously, Patrick Peterson is incredible. You want him on the field at all times. But beyond him, you're going to have Jamar Taylor kind of play the number 2 role. Brandon Williams, Bene Benwickery was a special teams only guy for the Cowboys. Christian Campbell was a good athlete, but he's very, very raw.
So you're telling me their number 2 corner is a guy they just traded for?
Yeah, from the Browns.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not in great shape overall.
All right, so Arizona's there at number 3. They could certainly use a guy at the cornerback position. I actually like the safety position. We'll talk about Earl Thomas later, and I'll be sure to ask you about the Arizona Cardinals and Earl Thomas. But in terms of Bashaud Breeland, he could perhaps go to the big toaster. We've got the Arizona Cardinals there at number 3. Let's take a look at number 2 on the list, and we've got the Kansas City Chiefs. Mentioned Kendall Fuller earlier in the program.
He's good.
Yeah, he's there, but he's a slot corner guy.
Yeah, they need more help, and David Amerson and Kendall Fuller are going to be your top 2 guys. Maybe Tremont Smith plays a bigger role, but look at everyone that Kansas City lost. Kenneth Acker is gone. Okay, not a big deal. Philip Gaines, not the worst thing in the world. Revis was a shell of his former self.
At least he was a veteran presence.
I don't think he was very good. Marcus Peters was great. Terrence Mitchell, he was okay. Not the best guy, but I guess good enough. But Kansas City, they are in such desperate need of a cornerback. Fuller's going to be a slot guy. Amerson, I think, is a number 2 corner. Who's your number 1 guy? Who's going to go match up with Keenan Allen? Maybe it is Fuller because he plays in the slot. Who's going to guard Demaryius Thomas? Who's going to guard Amari Cooper? Amerson or Steven Nelson or Keith Reeser?
It's a great point. There are premier wide receivers in that division that you're going to be playing twice a year. Cooper, Jordy Nelson, Tom, honestly, he's still a viable player.
Yeah.
Martavis Bryant, the list goes on. So if you want to talk about the Chiefs, the worry about them last year was their front 7. Now it might be that secondary, and Bashaud Breeland makes sense.
Definitely the secondary outside of one Eric Berry.
Yeah.
Because the rest of that crew is below average at best, and that's putting it nicely, frankly.
All right, so the Chiefs check in there at number 2. Let's take a look at the top team for Bashaud Breeland, the Indianapolis Colts. It was a mistake to let Rashaan Melvin go and then sign with the Oakland Raiders,
The mistake was not investing enough at cornerback in the NFL draft. That was the big mistakes for me for Indianapolis, because Rashaan Melvin, I'm not the biggest fan of. Yeah, they definitely need more help there. But the Colts, the report from Ian Rappaport was that Indianapolis is his likely landing spot once his foot heals. Now, that came back in May. or almost a month ago. So I don't know if it's still going to be the option in the end, or excuse me, almost 2 months ago. I just don't know if at this point the Colts are so interested, but they didn't sign anyone in the draft. And look at this cornerback depth chart.
It ain't good.
It is the worst in the NFL, easily. It's bad. Quincy Wilson, Nate Harrison's going to be your nickel. You might have to start Kenny Moore.
Who?
Exactly. DJ White is a Chiefs cast-off. Pierre Desir could make it for the Browns or the Seahawks, both teams that could have been on this list. These are guys that some people are going to think is made up. So it is a pretty bad group of cornerbacks. So I think for me, Cam, Breeland goes to the Colts. He signs a 1-year deal, let's say, $3 million or something, and then he goes in and gets paid after that, hopefully, once he's fully healed.
And probably the top corner on that team, to be honest with you.
You would hope so, yeah.
All right, so the Colts are there at number
Although
1.
I do love Quincy Wilson in a big way.
Let's recap the list here. We've got Seattle at 5, the Giants at 4, Cardinals at 3, Chiefs at 2, and the Colts are there at number 1, the top 5 teams for Bashaud Breeland. Where should he sign? Let us know. Give us a heart for the Colts, a like for the Chiefs, a laughing face for the Arizona Cardinals, and a wow face for another team out there. Folks, you're watching NFL Daily presented by Man Crates.